Hey everyone, Charlie here. We're running a quick survey. We want to better understand who our listeners are. Do me a huge favor and fill out that survey. It takes under a minute, and the link is in the show description. This helps us make better content for you. Thanks a ton for listening. Link in the show notes.
Hey, welcome back to the Mining Pod presented by Fractal Bitcoin. A little bit more about them later on during the show. Today, we're joined by Aydin Kilic. He is the CEO and president of Hive Blockchain. We've had the Hive team on a few times over the past few years, normally with Frank Holmes, the chairman, as well. This show was recorded at the PubKey bar in New York. Thank you to PubKey for making this show possible. This show was also recorded during the 4-year anniversary party for Hive, their NASDAQ listing. So we got to join the Hive team and many others to celebrate that achievement at NASDAQ this week. Thank you to Hive for the invitation. In terms of the show today and the conversation, we talk with Frank a lot about their scaling ambitions in Paraguay, the Bitmain purchase order that they made, and much more about their just continuous scaling efforts, racing towards 25 exahash by the end of the year. Lastly, we finish up talking about how they're paying for all the scaling, their at-the-market offering, and the pitch to investors on why they are choosing to put all this capital towards scaling in South America. Okay, let's get a few words from our sponsors and then on to the show.
You ever get into your buddy's car and think, dude, how do you live like this? There's half-eaten Taco Bell on the console, a pile of garbage and fast food cups and bags, rumbling in the trunk. You look behind you under your seat and you're pretty sure you saw something move, but you don't know what. Well, how do you think your Bitcoin miner feels if you're not keeping on top of your filtration game? Y'all need to get on Colorado Air Filters. Colorado Air Filters is a major supplier of air filtration systems for Bitcoin mining sites. And they're currently running a summer sale on their inventory, so now is the time to act. Whether you need HEPA filters, new shipments or installations for your containers or your large-scale mining facilities, retrofitted buildings, Colorado Air Filters has it all. And units are ready to sell now. Contact sales at coloradoairfilter.com and use the code MININGPOD to claim 15% off today. Again, that is sales at coloradoairfilter.com with code MININGPOD.
Hey, welcome back to the Mining Pod. I'm joined today by Aydin Kilic. He is the president and CEO of Hive. How you doing today, man?
Good. Thanks so much for having me. This is a really cool studio. It's my first time here. I've been to PubKey once, a couple years ago, but it's my first time here.
Shout out to PubKey. Thank you again to Thomas and the gang and Jonathan, our amazing producer behind the scenes, for taking care of us. PubKey is the best place to drink beer and spend Bitcoin in order to do it. So we're down here in West Village recording. We only have a little bit of time with you today because you're running around doing the investment banker side of things that all the public CEOs have to do. When did you get in and what are you guys doing here in New York?
So I got in last night and I'm really here to meet you right now. But then I've got a investor luncheon in Long Island and then an investor dinner in Long Island. And then I've got in between that, I've got 4 back-to-back virtual meetings, which I had 2 group scheduling meetings and those 4 were supposed to be in person in Midtown. And let's just say the left hand wasn't talking to the right hand. I was like, guys, I'm going to be in Long Island. And so it's going to be back to back from here on out. And then tomorrow, of course, is our 4-year anniversary, ringing the bell at NASDAQ. I flew down in July of 2021 with Frank Holmes and Gabe Igby. He's our general counsel. And we had a few other guys. And we're going to recreate that magic. And of course, we've got a bigger team now. We're, 12 exahash going on to 25. So the company's grown. We've navigated an Ethereum merge, to Bitcoin halving, built our own ASIC miner with Intel, didn't pivot into HPC, became an NVIDIA cloud partner. It's been a wild 4 years. Conferences galore, Dubai, London, Paris, New York, Miami, you name it, man. So it's pretty it's pretty nonstop, but I love it. I live for it.
You and Frank have some of this energy out of mining execs out there. I can say, having talked to so many of you guys and done so many interviews, that you guys are up there, top echelon for energy. Okay, so let's hit the majors for today. I want to talk about the 25 exahash end of year goal, any Paraguay updates. You guys have the new Bitmain units being deployed there. Toronto Buzz HPC site. And then lastly, talking about the finance side, ATMs, which you're here talking to investment bankers, pitching Hive. So that's kind of the lay of the land for the podcast for listeners today. Let's hit it off the top with the 25 exahash end of year goal ambitious, and you guys are already driving towards that with 12 exahash deployed. Most of that seemingly is going to Paraguay, where you guys operated that agreement with Bitfarms, took on some of their old sites, and are building those sites out. So those were just kind of like greenfields, as I understood it, and you guys are building those out and deploying the new gen Bitmain units.
Yeah, so it was actually really interesting how it all came together. So, Frank and I were big believers in energy, and as much as like I'm a man of science and I've got an electrical engineering degree and all this sort of very like technical stuff, you sort of have to have like a vision, right? And so our vision was to scale. I had met with Matt Siegel from Benek, I think it was last year, and he was like, "Look, you guys need more scale, right?" And it became readily apparent because it like I learned crypto mining from like the old school, like the true school guys before capital markets existed, the guys that were mining on industrial scale since 2014. I don't mean basement mining, like, having multi-megawatt back then. And, back then you host a little bit, you self-mine, and you just really manage downside risks so you can re-up cycle after cycle. And really, right, crypto mining is a game of unit economics, It's all about efficiency. It's not about efficiencies of scale, because like as you scale, you use more power. I'm sure you could kind of streamline your team, but that isn't really like the main thing. If you do not have sound unit economics, and what I mean unit economics, I mean breaking it down. What is your cost to mine, which by the way will fluctuate month over month or epoch over epoch, per kilowatt hour, right, of energy consumed, because when you buy an ASIC, it is specified in joules per terahash. Your input to the system is joules, your output to the system is terahash, which of course is a proxy for earned Bitcoin. And, everybody should know that, number of hashes per block is difficulty times 2 to the power of 32. It's purely mathematical. It's all ordained, right? And in fact, I did a pretty technical presentation at Bitmain's WDMS in Vegas, and I really walked through this stuff. I'm going to start posting it on Twitter, because you can mathematically define, what is block reward, what is hash price, like to fundamental like physics equations almost. And then once you know those equations, you could really just model everything and sort of do more elaborate scenario analysis. And so the whole mindset, like we survived an ETH merge, right? Yep. Like nobody else really had to do that. And it was like, oh, your business is going to go to zero. It's just like, no, crypto mining is all about asymptotes. Like it may approach zero, but it doesn't quite, right? Unless the blockchain fails, right? Yeah. So like just quickly, and I'm going to bring it back to the scale thing. You had the Ethereum mining business, which is like so lucrative for us. We were doing at the peak 90 cents a kilowatt hour, 90 cents a kilowatt hour mining with ETH and our NVIDIA GPUs. And we had AMDs as well. And sort of like, I think approaching the merge, we were sort of in the like 40 to 50 cents a kilowatt hour range. Yeah. And after the ETH merge, what happened was we started mining ETH Classic, Ravencoin, I think Beam. There was like half a dozen altcoins, and we changed them. Was just like, what are the top 6 GPU mineable coins? And we never actively like told the street what it was, because it's our edge, right? But we were still doing like 5 to 6 cents a kilowatt hour. Right now, keep in mind, back then in Sweden, where we were mining out of, our power cost is before any energy tax or whatever, was 3 cents, 2.5 to 3 cents. So we're still doing 50% gross mining margin when we should be zero. You know. And by the way, Bitcoin mining back then was doing about 8 cents a kilowatt hour with 34 joule per terahash units. Yeah. I mean, I tracked this, like I remember this specifically because it was like a, very definitive moment in time. And so you think of that, you're like, okay, so like mining altcoins with GPUs is generating about 75% of the top line revenue, as Bitcoin mining was at the time. And so we were able to like navigate that and survive. But then what we did is we pivoted into HPC. We'll talk more about that. So the thing is like we were always very, I would say, extremely diligent and very data driven and very calculated of how we deployed capital, what rigs to buy. Like I was a huge fan of the K Pro because that thing came out for like $12 a terahash. A lot of people like that unit. The same efficiency of the XP, and it was like half the price. But like some, not
and more durable is what I found.
Yeah. I mean, those are workhorses, and some of the big companies would just go like, "Oh, the XP is the best one. We're just going to buy that," and just like. It's like literally like almost the same efficiency. You're like, oh, but it has better chips. I'm like, just look at the specs, like run the math. Anyways, what I'm getting at, like, despite kind of having these like good unit economics, and we mine profitably, man.
Yeah.
We had positive gross mining margin every single quarter since 2021 when I joined Hive until now.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm talking 2022 bear markets, which were pretty grisly bear markets. Core went bankrupt, Argo went bankrupt, Celsius went bankrupt, Three Arrows, FTX, all that shit. Bitcoin hit 16,000 in October 2022. I have a very definitive timeline in my brain of this, like, when you ride the storm and survive it, you're like, holy shit, okay, all right, well, okay. But no, I'm just like, you go through it and you're just like, okay, this is like looking pretty hairy. Let's like dial in, downclock machines, improve efficiency. Like you do the whole thing. But guess what? Nobody really cared, right? Our peers were just fucking scaling, pardon my language, and it's just like scale, scale, scale. And so I'm just sort of like scratching my head, and I've got institutions that are like, yeah, you need scale. And why? Well, because guess what, right? In this day and age, you have some of our miners, and, shout out to our peers, we're very friendly, and I consider them, a lot of them, friends. I see them at conferences, but like, I think Mara and CleanSpark are like roughly 1/3 held by ETFs passively, which is pretty powerful when you think about that, right? I think Mara had a rough quarter when they announced 6 weeks ago, and their stock actually went up. They were like, analysts were like, oh, they missed their targets, but Bitcoin was up, so ETF buying was up, and so they passively indexed, right? So it's like, but how do you get so much ETF buying, right? Well, you have to have scale. There's different metrics, right, which we're sort of studying, and U.S. jurisdiction helps. So, we moved our principal executive office to San Antonio. We filed U.S. GAAP for the first time for our audited year end, which just came out a few weeks ago. Period end March 31st, filing deadline June 30th. That's why it came out a few weeks ago. So we're kind of signaling to the market, hey, we're aware that being U.S. domiciled obviously is going to qualify you. Like we've done quantitative studies on what are all the ETFs that are held by, that hold our peers, and what are the ones that hold us, and where we're not being held by those, we're like, what are their qualifying criteria, right? And so, okay, right, 500 million market cap, $1 billion market cap, etc. So obviously, to address the market cap, scale is like your direct correlation, right? So, as a publicly traded company now, where this is like a very industrialized business, scale matters in that sense, as it does affect your cost of capital. Even though in first principles from mining, it technically shouldn't. You know what I mean? Right? Because like, again, like the new generation of core, I think Adam Sullivan's great. I've been on some panels with him. He's doing a phenomenal job. But the previous iteration of core before him, they were the biggest and they went bankrupt. So like, I'm just like, guys, like this, it's just, the bigger you are, the harder you fall, like especially if you've got all these commitments, right? You're locked in PPA. So anyway, that's just kind of how I think we had this vision. We had this vision to scale. And so like the Bitfarms deal, I actually went to see their site in December, and we loved it. And it was built by the same general contractor that was building our site. So we started off 100 megawatts Valenzuela, right? So we connected the dots. Frank met the president of the country. I think we have a different approach. We have a pretty unique approach to doing business. Like Frank's all about engaging communities and meeting the local politician, like municipal, state, federal, right? We're electrifying 18 schools in the province where Valenzuela's in, and we've done, I think, like 8 so far. We're doing them sequentially. Again, meeting president of the country, Santiago Peña. So I met with the Minister of Industry and Commerce last time. So in that way, we became very comfortable and very confident in our ability to do business and our ability to flourish in Paraguay, right? So when Bitfarms had a change in leadership, shout out to Ben Gagnon, he's a smart dude. I really enjoyed working with him, even though we were sort of negotiating a deal. I flew down to Buenos Aires, got to meet him and his wife. And anyway, we've been on panels together too. And he had a vision for Stronghold in the US, right? And look, a gigawatt of power in the US with Trump coming into the presidency sounds pretty good to me. 300 megawatts of power, our 100 plus their 200, which we bought, sounds pretty good to me. It was a good I would say it was a good deal. It was a good deal. Now that site, the first 100 megawatts, which was air cooled, was effectively like 95% complete, and we got it pretty much at cost. And I say that because we knew how much it cost because our guy was building our own site. So we're like, okay, this is a good deal. And it alleviates them from all these capital commitments in Latin America so they can reinvest in the US. Awesome. And so I've been down to Paraguay, let's see, 3 times now. And I'm going to be going down again in September. I go down once a quarter, right? I come to New York once a quarter, travel a lot. And the first phase of 100 megawatts, we brought on an exahash a week, 5 weeks in a row. I was super proud of my team. And now we are in phase 2 and we're bringing on hydros, right? And, you know, it was a really interesting moment in time for me because I told my team, I said, guys, like we're going to be 25 exahash. 13 of those 25 exahash are going to be hydro miners. Half of our global production, it's a new technology. We've been traditionally air cooled. We have a bit of immersion in Le Chute, Quebec, but like we're going to be building 200 megawatts of hydro. Like we've got to thread the needle perfectly and knock it out of the park. And Bitmain's been amazing to work with. You know, shout out to Irene and her team. You know, their machines have been performing beautifully. The hydros are working very nicely. I think we just press released that we hit 12 exahash, and we got our first exahash of hydro miners online last week. So I'm really stoked about that. And but it all started with a vision, you know, and so now globally we'll have 440 megawatts once we're fully built out. We'll be at our sort of stage 2 or phase 2. Once that's complete, we'll be at 18 exahash, and that'll be this summer, right? In sort of mid to late August, and that's super exciting because we press release, and I could say this, that we hit 250 million ARR, right? We're probably mining with roughly 50% gross mining margin. Our global fleet efficiency after the completion of phase 1 was 20 joules a terahash, right? And so by the completion of phase 2, because these S21 plus hydros, great machines, are 15 joules a terahash. And so you just kind of do like a weighted average. You're like, okay, you've got 11 and a half exahash at 20 joules a terahash. Now you're adding 6.5 exahash at 15 joules a terahash. So by the, you know, as you do a weighted average, you'll be at 18 joules a terahash at 18 exahash at 18.5 joules a terahash, right? And so what that does is it improves your Bitcoin break-even cost. So I'd say we'll be sort of at 55%, assuming current hash price, etc. We'll be at 55% gross mining margin when we're doing 18 exahash, and our ARR is going to be like 400 million. Now, why that's exciting is our market cap, I think, is like, you know, between 350 and 400. And if we're doing, you know, say 55% gross mining margin after electricity costs, and we're doing 400 million revenue, it's like 200 million of profit from mining operations, right?
Is Bitcoin's most active scaling solution already here? Fractal Bitcoin's rapid hash rate growth and transaction volume suggests it might be. Today, close to 80% of Bitcoin's hash rate is merge mined and securing Fractal Bitcoin. What's more, Fractal processes over 11 million transactions daily, which is on par with the most active chains in the crypto space. Get the full scoop in our new report on Fractal Bitcoin. Explore its innovative cadence mining mechanism, emerging ecosystem of applications, and why Fractal Bitcoin is becoming Bitcoin's go-to innovation layer. Download the full report by accessing the link in the description below.
You guys do have one of the more aggressive ATMs over the last Q4 and Q1. So Q4, I don't have the Q4 number in front of me, but Q1, you guys 18% overall share dilution. Historically, what I will say in your guys' defense is that we have seen numerous miners tap the ATM market really hard in order to get to a certain market cap size. Shareholders have to deal with it for a little bit, and then you're able to use that cash to go scale and get bigger. And that seems to be the playbook you guys are running with from my perspective. That being said, obviously as a shareholder, it's not super fun to get diluted that hard. So I'm curious about your guys' thoughts on ATM as a strategy into, if you guys are getting to that size ARR, is there other funding opportunities you guys are looking at? Sell Bitcoin, debt, converts, etc. So two
Great question.
questions
Let's
there.
talk about it.
Yeah.
So you look at like what's your cheapest cost of capital, right? ATM 2.5% fees, right? No discount to the you're selling at the market. You look at the different funding mechanisms, and if you do a bought deal, they want a 10% discount to market, and you're going to have maybe a warrant in there, and you're going to have a 6% fee. Yeah. You're looking at like 20-25% cost of capital. We've stayed away from that. I think the last time Hive did a bought deal, I think it was in 2021, which Frank negotiated 0 discount to market. And then we did a special warrant deal in 2023, December, when it was like for like $30 million when we did our first S21 order. But, since then we've used ATM. First of all, we had like the least ATM usage for the longest time, and by far and large, the least dilution in the sector by a long shot. Now, in the last sort of year, right, as we've been building out Paraguay, I could talk about this because we've press released it. Our acquisition of the Bitfarm site was $400,000 a megawatt, right? It's how much? 200 megawatts. So what's that? $80 million. Now that's the acquisition price. That's cost of completion, right? That's everything, right? You got to put a deposit with Onday, right? So you add that up. We also have our site, which is 100 megawatts. So if you connect the dots, you're like, okay, $400,000 a megawatt, 100 megawatts, that's probably about 40 mil. So already you've got 80 plus 40 is 120 million. Yeah. We're building world-class infrastructure. We'll be at, call it, 10 to 12 Bitcoin a day, depending where hash price lands or difficulty by this fall. And so we're scaling the business in an accretive way. $400,000 a megawatt, 200 megawatts of which was 95% complete, right? At least actually the first 100 megawatts are 95% complete. So quick time to market, great acquisition cost. You're going to need capital. Now, here's the thing. We started in December 31st, we had 2,600 Bitcoin on the balance sheet. In our last disclosure, it was 600. We did the pledge for the ASICs, right? And so that gave us a free call option. Okay. Nice. $87,000. We're like something like $40 million in the money on that trade right now.
It's a nice little,
it's nice. Yeah. And guess what? There's zero interest. We talked to, Coinbase and True Prime and all these guys, whatever. They're all running a business too, but like, it's like 7 to 9% interest. But here's the worst part. It was like 160% LTV. So like, you've got to put up like $100 million of Bitcoin and you only borrow 60 and there's friggin' margin calls. I'm like, screw that, man. So no margin call exposure on our pledge, no interest, $87. Like, I think we've done a phenomenal job. And by the way, we've also sold some Bitcoin from cash flow from operations. So our methods have been pledge, cash flow from operations, and some ATM. Awesome. But we're scaling to 25 exahash. You could do the math. Like, I think we put in our December press release, we got an amazing deal from Bitmain, $14 a terahash. You're like, okay, these guys are buying. I think in total between the air cooled and the hydro units, something like 16 exahash. Giving you rough numbers. What's 16 times 14? It's like 200 mil, right? So that's $200 million of ASICs, right? For the most part, handled by pledge, 120 million in construction. Yeah, it's going to cost some money, right? But what's the trade-off? You know what? If we are doing, there's a slide in our deck. I think it could be, close to $500 million of mining margin, by year end, depending where Bitcoin is, right?
Where hash price is. I get I know you have to run here, but I think the idea is we get to a certain size, we have a multiple on that because most mining stocks trade on some sort of 5-6 multiple in EBITDA or revenue. And then all the shareholders are happy at the end of the day because everything's just accretive there. So I think the math makes sense on that side. From what I've heard from shareholders, retail shareholders, they're wondering like, what's next step for the rest of the year? Because you guys have obviously had your ATM running through Q4, Q1. Can you comment at all to what the funding mechanisms are going to be through the end of the year? Or do you guys have any of that public yet?
Well, I think, what we've put out to the street is that we're fully funded for the 25 exahash. I've also stated in some press releases, and that's, using our cash flow from operations and Bitcoin HODL. Yeah. Right? We're fully funded. And we've already paid, even if we didn't spend another cent tomorrow, we've paid for all the A6 to 18 exahash. You pay your first deposit to lock in the price, second and third deposit. All three deposits have been paid to get us to 18 exahash. ASICs are landing weekly in Paraguay, and that's why we're ramping up so quickly with our hydro now. And like we've got our second and third deposits on the 25 exahash. So we've got a few final deposits, which will pay sort of late August. And then boom, they're going to start shipping that last batch for getting us to 25 exahash. So we're fully funded for that, So I think it's really exciting.
Yeah.
And also one thing I do want to clarify, because I'm thinking of a slide deck.
Yeah.
When I said $500 million of mining margin, that's actually based on we have like a $100, $125 and $150,000 Bitcoin slide. And so it's the 150K scenario at 25 exahash that gets us to $500 million gross mining margin.
I hope that happens.
$700 million top line. I just wanted to clarify that. But even at current hash price, like if we're doing 12 Bitcoin a day and Bitcoin sticks to, like 100 grand, that's still 1.2 million a day. You're still almost 500 million of revenue and still, $250 million of free cash flow. And that's fully funded and that's coming online. And that, by the way, we hit 20 million ARR with our GPU business, and the airport site that we announced, 7.2 MVA is enough to effectively triple the footprint in terms of quantum of GPUs that we could bring online, and that's really exciting, right? So that site with Blackwell's, you could do up to maybe 5,000 H100s or up to 2,500 or 3,000 B200s. Would add almost an additional 80 million ARR. Now it's a year out because it will retrofit everything to liquid cooled.
Purchases
now we have a clear path to get to the 100 million ARR in Buzz. I think what's really exciting is looking at Buzz as a pure play entity, and we want to unlock shareholder value through that entity for anyone that wants exposure to AI. And we are an NVIDIA cloud provider. We're running over 5,000 GPUs between our clouds in Quebec and Stockholm. And we were the first to do it because we started putting income from AI cloud from our GPUs in the first quarter 2023, right? It was the very end of that quarter. It was like March 2023, but who else had been doing it that long, So like we're in the game, we're doing it, man. Stay tuned, as Frank likes to say.
I love it. Aydin, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, it's a pleasure and an honor.
And we'll see you tomorrow.
Great questions.
Hey everyone, Charlie here. We're running a quick survey. We want to better understand who our listeners are. Do me a huge favor and fill out that survey. It takes under a minute, and the link is in the show description. This helps us make better content for you. Thanks a ton for listening. Link in the show notes.